A lot of small businesses are still treating their brand as an aesthetics game, which is why they aren't getting the ROI that they're looking for. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down what it is the larger brands are doing to actually grow at the exponential rate that they're growing at, and what it is that small businesses can do to replicate that for themselves. So if you are a small business and you're operating a brand, especially if you're sitting here like, oh, I wish I was getting more ROI on my brand, this is the video you want to stick around for. So when we think about ROI for a brand, the biggest thing is, are people buying? Is this brand helping move people through the sales process, and is it creating loyal customers? Now, when you are treating your brand just like a pretty sticker that you slap on top of something, or as I said, kind of an aesthetics game, you're missing out on a big portion of what it is that actually gets people buying and referring you. Now, when we look at buying decisions, the Edelman Trust Barometer of 2025 put out a survey, and the results came back, and there are three key things that affect a buying decision: price, quality, and trust. Now, a lot of businesses spend time focusing on the price and quality. We're sitting here, we're wanting to make sure that our pricing is right, we're adjusting numbers, and then also quality, we want to make sure that the service or product that we are offering is actually good quality. And honestly, buyers nowadays have way higher standards than they did previously. And so if you are not focusing on quality of your product, and you're just trying to get something out quickly, or you're just trying to make a quick buck, like, this is not the video for you. But the big thing that a lot of small businesses miss, and is actually what your brand is there to do, is that third piece, which is trust building. Now, I want to talk about trust for a second. We're going to get into the psychology of trust. This is very, very important when it comes to building a brand. So there are four key categories of trust building when it comes to the psychology of trust and what makes people trust. And I call this the trust model. The first one is predictability. And this all comes down to the fact that the brain will trust things that it can predict. So when you're getting advice that's like, show up consistently, do what you say you're going to do, that falls into the predictability category. But that tends to be the only advice that small businesses are getting. But the three other categories carry just as much, if not more weight than the predictability section does. And we're going to talk about those here and how all of these can be leveraged in your brand to make sure that you are getting a higher ROI. So number two is social belonging, which boiled down is essentially people trust others more when they feel like they are part of the same group. The example that I really like to use is like when you were in middle school, right? Most of us were incredibly awkward in middle school. When you entered a middle school dance, or when you went to a new school for the first time, you sought out people that you felt were similar to you. And that is what buyers are doing, which is why it's so important that when you are creating your brand, you are thinking about who it is your buyer is currently and who they want to become, and creating a space and environment that fosters that and represents that. This is going to be things like identity, shared values, familiarity, social alignment, even like in-group psychology. The next one is shared experience. And this is all about emotional bonding. As we know, people buy from an emotional place. They may have logic in it, but the more emotionally attached someone is to a brand, the more likely they are to stay with you longer and spend more money. And so you want to be creating these emotional moments through these shared experiences with your buyers in order to increase that brand ROI. Because the reality is, trust is going to deepen through repeated emotional participation. And if you're just treating your brand like a pretty thing you slap on top, people are not becoming emotionally invested in that. The vast majority of your audience is not becoming emotionally invested because you've chosen a specific color or because your logo looks a certain way. It is through the experience that your brand creates. I want you to think of these as like traditions, community gatherings or experiences, ways that people can connect with others who are just as invested in your brand or your mission as you are, even like rituals of sorts. And then the final category for the trust model is intent clarity. You can also think of this as transparency, because the reality is clear motives create safety. When people feel like you have a different motive than what you are presenting, they're not going to feel safe and they're not going to trust you. Often, like I like to pair this with the idea of the car salesman. A lot of people see a car sales guy as a sleazy seller, right? Like there's this idea that they have other intentions than just getting me the car. Right? They want to make the most money. They want to screw me over. They want, all kinds of things. Intent clarity happens through the communication, through the transparency, and through emotional honesty. Now, all four of these things, so the predictability, the social belonging, the shared experience, and the intent clarity, are things that you experience in your day-to-day life with individuals that you have trust with. But they're things things that buyers also experience with brands, and it's the things that these larger businesses have leveraged in order to create the kind of loyal following, the cult-like following, the advocates for their brand, and the people who come back and buy over and over and over again. And if you want to have this kind of experience for your small business and the brand that you are building, you have to stop treating your brand just like 2D assets and instead start treating it like a full universe that you want your people to step into. And I use the term brand universe a lot. You'll see it in a lot of my content. I've got other videos about it as well. And it's so important because this really is the difference I see biggest between small businesses that continue to struggle and larger businesses, as well as small businesses that are getting it right and hitting the nail on the head. The ones that people are talking about over and over again, the ones that are getting referred without them having to ask. It is a brand universe that creates this. And it's because a brand universe itself is a neurosocial system. And this is really important. A brand universe is intentionally curated and is a full set of external signals that a person's brain is using to decide whether or not a brand is safe, understandable, and worth engaging with. When you start treating your brand like a universe, when you start expanding your thinking, when you start intentionally incorporating these trust building moments, that is how you get the ROI that you're looking for. That is how you get loyal customers. That is how you get people to refer you. That is how you decrease the length of time in your buying process. And it's what I have used to create my brand caliber standard, which is the framework that I take all of my clients through when we are building their brand universe, when we are taking their 2D assets and expanding them into an obsession-worthy brand that people want to interact with and also tell their friends about. Now, if you're wanting to improve the ROI of your brand and this video resonated with you, I encourage you to apply to book a discovery call with me. We'll talk about what a brand universe could look like for your business, how I can help you bring it to life, and the next steps to get you moving towards that ROI that you're looking for.